to make climate change cool? Is it possible to make science interesting and appealing to non-sciencey people like myself? Matthew Shribman is a guy who I met up with a few days ago, and he's doing exactly that. He's managed to take somebody like me who is really not naturally scientifically minded or curious, and I'm listening to his content all the time. He's got a great podcast, he's got a cool YouTube channel, he's very good on the social media. He's managed to make science, from my perspective, cool, and he's making it accessible. We met up at the LX Factory in Lisbon, where we have one of our studios, and this is where we'll pick up the video right now. Enjoy. So here we are with the wonderful Matthew Shribman.
Hey, sorry, I'm just marvelling at the place.
Yeah, I know, it's great.
This place is so good. You can't see this off the camera, but over there's some airplane seats in the window, and then we are really high up, right?
Yeah, we are pretty high.
We're really high up,
yeah.
And yet
you can see
way
the bridge
above us is this huge bridge.
Yeah.
I haven't got to explore much of Portugal yet because I've been so ill.
Yeah.
But it's pretty amazing here, isn't it?
It's a nice place to be. I was telling you, I used to live in Berlin, mid-90s, 96 when I got there, and it was quite alternative, quite a lot of interesting things going on, vibrant, young, full of energy. It's still got all these elements, but it reminds me very much of that period. It's a fun time.
Makes me want to move here.
You should, you could.
Really, genuinely.
You could.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Feel welcome. We met when you were, I guess hosting would be one way of describing, presenting is probably the better way, an event on climate change, okay? Which I think for a lot of people is almost, in a ridiculously way, a little bit tiring. Like everyone knows, but no, I think a lot of people feel like almost like it's just happening and there's not much they can do about it.
Yeah, so I think the Greta Thunberg quote on this is really really captures it, saying like I can't remember what the exact quote is, but it's about how hope is, we can't just hope.
Yeah.
But when we actually act, hope is everywhere.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that's really getting people down, is that everyone understands the problem, and yet there's so little action because the political will isn't there. And so this is what I wanted to do with the talk. I knew that there'd be a lot of political people there, like the UK ambassador to Portugal was there, and the Chamber of Commerce. And I really didn't want to give a message of, oh, it's fine, we don't have to worry too much because all these things are happening and they're really hopeful. I wanted to deliver a message of, this is really bad and you guys need to act.
But it wasn't just like you need to do something, which is kind of vague. You gave quite specific information, no?
Yeah, well, sorry, I was trying to do two things simultaneously with the talk. One was that, like, deliver this message of things are really bad and we can't be complacent at all. Yeah. And we're getting to the point where I feel like it's kind of a moral obligation, it's an obligation of our own survival that we all have to do as much as we can. Yeah. So I really wanted to give that message because I feel like people are still sitting back and thinking, oh, it's okay, it must be being taken care of somewhere.
Someone must be doing something.
And it isn't really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really didn't want to leave people with this sense of hopelessness, which I think has been the big problem. And so, yeah, this
and overwhelmed sometimes, no? I'm talking from my own specific kind of position of, I kind of feel like the problem is so big, how can little old me make any difference?
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of the things I really wanted to address. So I used to work a lot on I still do a lot of work with plastic pollution. And the thing that is kind of good about that campaign is that people can really see the problem. It's very visible to them, but they also know what they can do. They know that they can go to the supermarket and buy less plastic. They know that they can campaign with their schools saying, like, why are you packaging this in plastic and so on. They can make these little gains. Yeah. And even though in real terms those things are very, very small, they do make a small difference, and it empowers people to then make bigger changes. And once
a domino effect?
Exactly, and once more people get on board with this, it becomes political because politicians can't ignore that all of the citizens are starting to act. Yeah. And so I think I agree that change can't come about from an individual level to solve everything, but that individual change really helps to catalyze the systemic change that we need. So there's that. But yeah, sorry, I wanted to take that thing from plastic and take that over to climate change. And with climate change, everyone knows there's a problem, but you're right, people don't know what they can do. So this is why I set up this campaign called No Beef.
That's right.
Climate change. We all know about it.
We all know it's worrying AF, but what's the best thing that we, individuals, can do about it? I mean, we know that we should drive less, but we need to get to places. And we know that we should heat our houses less, but what about when it's chiller? Turns out that one of the single most effective things that individuals can do is also one of the easiest. Just stop eating beef. And lamb, but mainly beef. You can cut your impact by a full 95% by eating proteins from delicious plants. It takes an enormous amount of water to create a steak, from the water the cow drinks and sweats, to the water needed to grow the plants that it eats, and all of the industrial water surrounding that as well. A single gram of steak sets the world back a full 16 litres of water. If you cut out beef, if you're an completely average global citizen,
you eat meat, you eat pretty much what's around in the shops, in the supermarkets or whatever, you eat that, then there's one thing you can do to make a difference.
Yeah, so if you're an average global citizen, then the single most effective change that you can make in your life to reduce your emissions, reduce your impact on deforestation, use of fresh water, use of fertilizers, degradation of soil, like all of these things is just to stop eating beef.
Yeah.
Which it's just that one thing. And when I found it out, I was flabbergasted. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how can it be so big? So yeah, there was that chart where I showed that if you put all the land mammals on Earth in a pile, so like including elephants and otters, and nearly said geese then. Geese aren't mammals. Like squirrels and like tigers and lions, all of this stuff, then 41% of that pile would be cows. Humans would only be 28. So yeah,
it's really insane.
Yeah, there's so much cow on the planet, and it's all because we've got so used to farming them. They're such a popular farm animal.
Yeah.
But really, like, the impact that you have as an individual by eating beef, by contributing to that system is bigger than using cars. That's not just driving cars. It's like it's being driven in cars.
Production them and everything.
It's amazing how big the impact is just eating beef, and it seems really weird because like, how could it be that big if you're just eating beef? It shouldn't be that bad, but
it is.
It's just such an inefficient way to produce food.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the equivalent of taking some like soybeans and like flying them through space arbitrarily and then like landing them again and then eating them. It's like, it's crazy how much resources goes into producing beef.
Interesting.
Maddening when you really look into the numbers.
Okay, but that's interesting because I think anyone who is already understanding that there's a big problem and maybe feels like they don't know what to do, or feels that if they did one thing it probably wouldn't matter, this thing actually would matter if they did that. If they cut out beef, they could eat everything else, right? Cut out beef, they could have a serious impact on things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If we all did it, of course.
Yeah, if everyone did it, it would have a huge impact.
And
what I think is that overall, we're not going to convince the whole planet to give up beef.
True.
And so for me, what that campaign is more about is empowering people, showing them that they individually can make a big difference.
Nice.
Because then they want to get more involved in other things, and it opens their eyes to kind of campaign groups that are pushing governments and so on, and they're like, oh, I should actually help out with this campaign group.
Okay.
Because we really need to help out with the campaign groups, because the problem with our governments is they're tied up in a financial system that's all to do with like growth and more, which is driving the whole problem. So yeah, and also the other thing that I was saying about no beef is that a lot of the people in the audience were vegan and vegetarian, and they've got these frustrations of, how do I convince my friends who are ignoring all of these arguments because
I don't think you can convince anybody of anything, no. But if you do something like you're saying, where it's kind of like, well, we're not trying to convert you, we're just giving you this information that if you remove one element, then you can make a big change. It's less radical.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is what I was thinking when I set it up, was like, it's hard to tell people, hey, drop all meat, because obviously dropping all meat would be an even bigger impact than dropping beef.
Sure. But it's also unlikely. You're not going to turn everyone into vegetarian overnight.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first step. And what we've found is that when people join up to the campaign and they agree to stop eating beef, they write to us and they're saying, actually, I've been replacing it with plant products instead, and I've been reducing my meat overall, and I've been starting to think a lot more about where my food is coming from. Yeah. So it's just
another domino effect, right?
Yeah, I think because we live in this crazy world of like information saturation, there's just so much stuff out there all the time. willful blindness is becoming a really big problem.
Okay.
Like, people just don't want to act because it's just there's too much emotional burden to just think, oh, there's another thing that I have to do to try and make the world a better place. And that's why I think that the beef thing is a good thing, because it's quite an easy way to push past that willful blindness and say, hey, I know you don't want to think about the food that you eat, because I know that's something that you really enjoy, but just try and think about this little thing.
Interesting. So you are, from my point of view, as a traditionally I'm not interested in science, right? I'm very happy that scientists exist. I know our life is much better because of them. I kind of feel that way about quite a lot of things. It's like, I'm glad people do that, but I personally have never shown any interest in it. But I've been listening to your podcast. Of course, a little bit of video, but I'm more in kind of podcast mode, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, I'm very into podcasts because I can drive the car, I can, go for a walk, all that kind of thing. It's more practical. So I've been listening to the podcast, and it's completely science-based, but it's very accessible and it's entertaining, right? So you, to me, seem like a bit of an outlier in the science world. I'm not very educated on the people within it, but it seems there's probably not very many people within the scientific community who are approaching the public in the way you are. Is that fair?
Yeah, this is what I kind of set out to do, was that I always loved science, but I was always very into kind of media, and after university I went off into the music industry for years, and I wrote a lot of songs, and we toured them around, and we got them onto Radio 1 and played. Yeah, and we got, in fact this story's way too long for this interview, but there was this amazing story involving a lost dog, a castle in Wales, a town still running the feudal system, and Keith Allen. Lily Allen's dad.
I know Keith. Well, I know who he is.
Amazing guy. Who then heard all of our music because of this weird series of events that we won't go into, and then booked us for Glastonbury.
Did you play?
And then we announced for Glastonbury because we didn't know that we weren't supposed to announce. So we were the first band to announce for Glastonbury. So we were all over the news.
Amazing.
And we were like, oh crap, are we going to get taken off the billing because we've broken all the rules? And then actually there was a real tragedy that happened in his family, and so he cancelled his stage, so we didn't end up playing. But we played a lot of other festivals. But still, anyway, sorry, I digress. But the thing is, I'd spent a lot of time kind of engaging with that more mainstream audience. There was a lot more about branding and trying to be approachable. And I always, I like people, and I like these kind of mediums. And so I wanted to do science in a way that was much more approachable. And
That's
actually,
nice.
It's been so much more of a battle than I thought it would be.
What's been the battle?
Well, I really thought that when I got started, people would be much more welcoming of it and be like, oh yeah, we do really need this. But actually, it was, okay, what was really telling for me is that when I approached music festivals to do my science show, they would always be like, yeah, great, this sounds really good, perfect, we'll have you, it's perfect for the audience and so on. But when I approached like science festivals that are whose kind of mission statement is we're trying to make science accessible for the public,
they were less open to
they
it.
turned me down literally every time. I've never performed at a science festival. Oh no, that's not true. There is one called Pint of Science in Oxford, which is quite fun, and I think they've got the right vibe, but a lot of them really have this kind of sense of, no, we want research scientists who are doing the research right now, and we want it to be more lecture format, and we want it to be set up in this very specific way, and I found it really difficult.
Isn't that interesting that your own community rejects you in that respect, from an entertainment or information point of view, but the other worlds are very welcoming?
It's funny though, it's not, I wouldn't say it's the community, because the scientists themselves I find are very welcoming to me, because I think they watch my videos and they see that I'm communicating things in a way that is as accurate as can be, and I'm trying to use like novel ways to explain things. And like when I did my gravitational waves video, I got a few messages from professors who were studying that kind of thing, saying this is a really interesting way to describe this that I've never seen done before.
Nice.
I did it with like letters and stuff, and I think that the scientists like what I'm doing. What I find difficult is
who's resistant then? Who's resisting?
I it's hard to explain, but it's kind of like the science communication community.
Okay.
You feel that things should be done in a certain way.
Okay.
I won't go deeply into this, but there's this kind of group in London who are kind of like the hub of science communication in some ways, and that they gather a lot of people together, and they're very cliquey and someone had a great word for it. They described what they do as, rather than outreach, they do inreach.
Which means?
As in, rather than outreaching to new people, they just communicate
within
to the audience
themselves.
they already have, to scientists that already exist and stuff. And what I'm trying to do is...
You want to reach the masses, right?
Reach new people. Which is why when the No Beef video came out, the first one, and it had torrents of negative comments on it, I was like, brilliant.
Yeah,
this
reaction.
is so good.
Reaction.
Because it shows that the audience is diverse.
Yeah.
So so I'm trying to...
I like that perspective. I like the fact that you obviously weren't looking for a negative reaction. You weren't kind of, clickbaiting or any of the kind of negative terminology that's sometimes associated with creating that feeling or that reaction on purpose. But when it happened, you're reaching people, right? And it's a subject that people have strong opinions about. And that's important, right? I think it's very cool. So you've got the Science in the Bath. Is that a thing that you're still doing or have done? Kind of.
I mean, Science in the Bath is the name of the channel.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it called that. I'll probably will do some things in the bath again. The thing about the bath was that it was when I just got started. I'd come out of music. I was very aware of the fact that, people are scrolling down their news feeds, information saturation. You need something to grab their attention.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if I can grab someone's attention for 15 seconds, I can tell them something really cool about science.
Yeah.
And then they're in.
Amazing.
And then they'll watch. So it was just to kind of get things started, and it was actually really fun doing that. Was that the first content that you made? Was in the bath? Yeah.
I love it.
I did a few naked.
You were naked in the bath. I've only ever seen you clothed.
I know, because I did a few naked with like bubbles covering me up. And I watched it back and I was like, there's something not quite right about it.
It felt wrong.
And then I put clothes on and I thought, how could that be more right?
But it was.
It's fine. Yeah, when I've got clothes on, it's fine. But yeah, and then it just became kind of the brand. And it's memorable, so I'll keep it, and I like that there's stuff online.
I think it's a nice hook.
Yeah, but I'm now doing more stuff out of the bath. Partly because, this is the other part of the community that I find a bit frustrating is the kind of traditional broadcasters. I get on very well with a lot of the people there, but the system that they've built is very much set up for... Rigid. Set up for research professors again. And and I keep trying to say to them, hey, like, I'm reaching young people, I'm engaging people. Yeah. Like, isn't this what you're looking for? Aren't you trying to get young people interested? And
what do they say?
And they're like, yeah, we are. But actually, we've got this program coming up. Oh, but you don't have a PhD in this specific thing. And I was like, the whole point is that I'm a generalist. Like, I'm not going to go on screen and kind of pretend that I know everything. Yeah. Because I'm very aware that I don't know most things. But what I really like doing is, trying to explain a subject that I'll go away and learn about, and then explain it in a way that's easy to understand. But they're quite resistant to me.
It's interesting.
Which is surprising. Maybe it's not surprising.
Well, institutions are often entrenched and often have a certain way of doing things, and the rationale is often we do it this way because that's the way we do it. And not many institutions are asking themselves why.
Yeah, it's weird that it feels like a lot of people are asking themselves why, but not able to change because the system's just too big. The system's just so big, isn't it?
But I think that's why people like you need to come along and start conversations, get people asking questions, forcing people to answer the questions. I think that's as important as anything else to making change happen. I'm trying to think of all the things that you've got. You've got the Science in the Bath, which is pretty much YouTube, right?
YouTube, actually, it was mainly Facebook.
Oh, okay.
It was mainly Facebook. It's all on YouTube now, and I've kind of announced on Facebook that I'm going to stop putting them on Facebook because Facebook's gone a bit funny. It's kind of, Facebook's weird now, like, as someone who's making content, you really have to pay for your audience to see your stuff. And I really resent that. Because I'm trying to make good quality content, and I feel like if the platform isn't rewarding that,
I get it.
I find it very annoying.
I totally understand.
So yeah, in fact, it's mainly Instagram and YouTube now where I'm based. Yeah.
Okay. So we're mainly on Instagram and YouTube. You've got the podcast, which I think more and more people are I think if you'd have said this 5 years ago, the reaction would have been different. But I think from the people watching this video, I think a certain percentage will just listen to the podcast immediately, more than watch videos. So it's called A Piece of String, and it's really entertaining. Like, I'm not a scientist, and I rejected science wholeheartedly throughout my education because it just wasn't my thing. Well, maybe that's the wrong way of saying it. The way it was presented didn't appeal to me, right? Yeah. But you guys are making it accessible, you're making it entertaining, you're making it informative, you're making it interesting, light-hearted, and it's a great way of kind of, well, converting people like myself, right, who don't like science, you know? I love it. So we've got you've done the TED Talks as well. Was it just one, or was it more than one?
I've done one, yeah, the London one.
I saw it, it looked great.
TED threw me right into the deep end, because it was actually quite early on in my science presenting career. Yeah. And I was in front of a crowd of 1,500 people in this huge auditorium. So terrifying.
In a bath.
Because the thing is, as you saw when I did my talk, I always have a few notes, because my memory is very bad.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I like freestyling a little bit, but I have terrible rapid recall. But you have to learn everything for TED. You have to. And so I came out, and basically I was in a bath, submerged underwater, holding my breath, being wheeled into this auditorium. I forgot to take my socks off as well, which was really embarrassing. And then I was just holding my breath, and they've cut out a lot of me holding my breath on the YouTube video, because it was probably just boring. But they were apparently about to run on to save me because they thought I'd died.
That's so funny.
But then I popped out of the bath, took a deep breath, and that was the first time I saw the 1,500 people.
That's
so
funny.
It was terrifying, but it was also like, just got to do it. So I just went straight into it. But yeah, the podcast. You've got the podcast. It's really entertaining. Like, how often do you release? I couldn't work that out. It used to be once every couple of weeks. We've put it on pause because we're preparing series 2. Yeah. But yeah, it's really fun. I love that because it's with other science communicators who are so good. They're so funny, right? They're so funny. And yeah, we do questions like, how tall would a water slide have to be to take you from London to New York? And can soap ever get dirty? And what happens if you actually fight fire with fire? It's really
great.
Fun.
I love it, because these are not things that I would traditionally even contemplate. But you know, I've got kids, and I feel like the doors I closed in my mind should never have been closed, and I closed them probably due to poor teaching or boring teaching, right? Factual based, this is what we're learning today, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to learn that. But now I can say to my kids, they're a little bit young now, but maybe in a few years' time, you should listen to this. And I think it will awaken their curiosity, make them think about the world differently, make them ask questions that I probably couldn't prompt them to ask, because that's not in my nature. I think it's wonderful. I'm interested a little bit because I'm a marketer, right?
Yeah.
And amongst a few different things. And whenever we do interviews, I always try and understand the journey from thinking about doing something to doing something, from not being known to being known, and how that's happened. You've addressed it a little bit. I like the way, forgive me if I got this wrong, you had an idea that you wanted to reach the public, right? Mm-hmm. And you thought, how can I get people's attention?
Yeah.
And you thought, I'm going to sit in a bath and I'm going to talk to them about science.
Pretty much the basic primitive thought pattern that went through my mind, yeah.
But it's great.
Oh, thanks.
It's amazing. Like, I full-heartedly, like, I applaud you for it, because it is amazing. It's genius. I mean, it's simple, it's basic, but the best ideas are, right? It's eye-catching, it's attention-grabbing. I love it. Like, I think it was a masterstroke.
Oh, thank you.
I really, really do. So you went from, I'm assuming now, from having a couple of friends watching videos, like everybody does, on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Mm-hmm. Where did the attention come from? How did it happen?
Yeah, I think it's hard to answer in a way that could be useful to people now.
Just the speed or the irregularity, or whether or not it kind of went from 0 after like 3 months to thousands. Just little details like that are really interesting.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that annoys me about what people think should happen in marketing, because it's always celebrated, is this kind of hockey stick growth, right?
Yes.
It's like, phew, and it's not. And the reality is mostly not like that. Like most of these things grow through just consistent hard work. And
so was your line more like that?
It's just been pretty linear.
Smooth.
You know? Yeah, you know, the more I do, the more people pay attention. And it's a bit exponential, but it's kind of just, you know, it correlates really very much to how much work I do. I know there's some people get very lucky and they get a video that a lot of people watch, but I think virality at the moment is kind of gone. Like, how often does something really high quality go viral by itself without any kind of push?
Well, viral is I think often misunderstood as well. Viral just really means popular.
Yeah.
That's literally all viral means. But when I think most people talk about virality, they think about this hockey stick effect, right? Where you go from a few people watching to thousands or millions within a couple of days, hours, or something short. It doesn't have to be that way, and it wasn't that way with you, right?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's had an endless series of kind of mini crises of confidence, because it's so hard. Like, it's really hard, and there are so many times when you think, oh god, like nothing is, you know, the aim for me is not to have a following, or it's not to have a Netflix show or anything like that. The aim is just to reach people with good science, because I really think that of all times in history, this is the most important time for people to really understand and like science. And so I don't care what medium it is, I just want to be able to do that. And obviously having a following helps to do that. Yeah. But so that's why sometimes it's so frustrating that I'll spend like days and days and days on a video that I think is really good, and then
people won't watch it.
Something will happen where people won't watch it. Like, it just makes some mistake on the algorithm where too many people will cut off at a certain point. Yeah. And it can be so frustrating and so disheartening, and that's why my method to try and grow what I'm doing is just to do loads of different things. Yeah. Like I do, and that's why my video output is quite inconsistent compared to a lot of creators. I've been to some of these like creator conferences where there are like video makers and stuff, and I've often found the vibe there to be a bit weird, because those people often are doing it just purely because they want a following. They want to be famous for the sake of fame. And it's not everyone, but there are a lot of people I get that vibe with. Whereas, so I try to stay too much out of just video, and I try to do talks as well, like the talk I was doing, and then I try to help people write scripts, like, and that's all kinds of different things. Like, I help campaign groups write video scripts, and I'm trying to help climate institutes write scripts and sort out videos, and I'm trying to get involved with academics, so I think doing interesting things. And I've just cast this very broad net, which has left me very busy. I like that. But it means I'm involved with lots of different people, and the opportunities come from all kinds of different places, and it's an adventure. It's an adventure, but it can be a really difficult path, because it's so difficult to fund. It's so difficult to fund.
That makes sense.
I would say that 80% of the work that I do is unfunded. Yeah. And that's why it's really upsetting to me when a company approaches me and they're like, hey, can you do this talk for us? And can we pay you this much? And I know they have loads of money. I just write back to them and say, look, like, I spend most of my time doing all this like environmental and science outreach stuff for free. Yeah. I know that you've got so much more money than this. Please pay me properly. Yeah.
What's the typical response?
Typical response is actually good. Yeah. Like, people generally people respond well to that, because I think that they do get a lot of speakers who are just trying to make money. Yeah. Whereas the thing is, almost all the money I have is just going straight back into this. Yeah. Because I'm just trying to like build it up.
You're on a mission, am I right?
I'm on a mission.
Is there a mission statement? Is there an actual, like, have you ever like worked out what the mission is?
Yeah. Well, I say that I'm trying to make science as accessible as oxygen. Science as accessible as oxygen.
Easy for you to say.
I realised I never said that before. I've only written it down. But yeah, so I'm trying to do that, and through that, I'm trying to inspire curiosity. Yeah. And encourage like more courageous thinking, because I think we're in a time where we need radical thinking, and I hope that this will help to create positive social and environmental change. So
that's amazing. So yeah, I think it's interesting going back to the content thing that you're creating content when it feels correct, when you have the time, when you have the energy, the headspace to create it. You haven't got a particular schedule, I guess, when you're creating it or when releasing it. It's whenever you can and whenever the time's right. But you've also noticed that the more effort you put in to creating content, the more successful you are in that particular area. Is that right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and the more you put out, the more you'll gradually get noticed and picked up, I suppose.
Have you made a video that you thought was terrible or not so great that was really popular?
Oh! I thought you were just going to ask me maybe one that I thought was terrible. I made one that I thought was terrible that took off really well. I think I'm quite a perfectionist with my videos, so there haven't really been any that I've put out that I thought were terrible apart from this one.
So do you keep on remaking a video if you're not happy with it?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time perfecting them.
Do you think that might be a weakness rather than a strength?
I think that probably is a weakness.
I think so.
Yeah, it massively reduces the output. I really need a sub-editor or an editor who can just send me the final copy and just refuse to do any more edits.
Yeah,
really.
I would agree, because like I talk a lot about this online, and my big thing about social media is quantity beats quality.
I think so.
Definitely, because you know what you were saying about how there's a lot of people watching a lot of things. I think ultimately the more you're talking, the more you're communicating, the more likely you are for people to stumble upon the video that changes things for them. And that could be the so-called video with very low kind of engagement, low likes, low views, but that one video could change something significantly for somebody that has that kind of snowball effect and change all kind of things that you can't even imagine. They might be connected to you, they might not be. But the more you're creating, and not worrying about the content, the quality so much, like it's going to keep on getting better because you keep on creating more and more and more. Just through practice, the quality will get better and better if you don't worry too much about it.
I think the one thing that runs against that for me, because I definitely get what you're saying, is that because it's science, it really has to be as accurate as possible, otherwise
the information,
otherwise there's a reputational risk.
I agree.
So that's always the stress for me.
But is that your worry? Is that your major concern?
It actually is. It is often.
That makes sense.
Concern, yeah.
That makes sense.
It's like, is this explained in a way that isn't going to get loads of people pushing back?
The thing
is, often when I do get complaints from people about the science, it's usually just people who are just demonstrating to me that they're smart. And then I write back something like, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't realise, and like I'll add a correction, and thanks so much for pointing it out. And instead of the kind of slightly passive or aggressive response, they always write back saying, oh, don't worry about it, totally get it, really love your videos and stuff. So the people who are complaining are actually nice people, who seem to be fans. So you probably are right, I should just push more stuff out. But I am really keen to make sure it's
I understand that. I think when you're in a position like you are, where you're trying to inform the public, the nation, the world, that you feel a burden of responsibility. I get that. I understand. Listen, I'm super impressed. Yeah, honestly, anyone who can open the world of science to me, 44 years old, I've never shown slightest interest in the subject. You've done it. Yeah, so you've converted me to being interested in science. You've made me think about my kids, about helping them see the benefits and the potential of understanding this world. You know? I think it's a huge achievement already. And I sense that, I think if we're having this discussion 3 years, 5 years from now, I think you've done some great things in that time. I can see it happening already. I really can. I really can.
So the confidence.
Oh, it's there, man.
Crank on.
Yeah, you should, because I think you're doing a great thing. The talk, you can also probably check that out. I'm not sure of the timing of our schedule, but we'll put the talk out on YouTube and social media as well. But is there anything you would like to say?
I'd like to encourage people to check out the No Beef campaign.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's really, I'm trying to get more people involved in that at the moment, because we're trying to get schools and universities to drop beef. Because
how are you doing that?
We're approaching them via students, there's a big campaign team, it's like 15 people strong or so, and they're really amazing, and I'm just trying to help them out as much as possible.
Nice.
And yeah, I think we're in a time when we need to encourage these institutions to drop beef. There are arguments that people will come across that in some places cows have a benefit for the health of the soil and so on, but those kind of processes make beef very expensive.
Yeah.
And expensive food does not necessarily belong in a university or a school.
I agree.
And so I think cutting out beef from schools and universities is an important part of steps towards the future and sending a wider positive message about climate change.
That reminds me of kind of like the movement that Jamie Oliver did with the schools, and although obviously there was a lot of kind of like controversy or kind of, there was good and bad press about that movement, right? But ultimately, I think with a more kind of medium-term perspective, it was pretty successful, right? Yeah. And people changed their thinking as a result of it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really smart way of doing it. I think it's really smart. I hadn't considered that side of it, but if you're working with institutions, then obviously a lot of people are eating there. That's a lot of volume, right? That's smart. Very cool. Nothing else?
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's great.
No?
Loved it. It's been a real pleasure. We'll be posting all kinds of content about this. We'll post about the event that Matthew spoke at. I urge you to check out the podcast, which is my personal favourite, which is A Piece of String. You can find Matthew on YouTube. Are we searching Science in the Bath?
Yeah, if you search Science in the Bath with spaces in between, it will come up on every platform.
On every platform?
Yeah, because my Instagram handle is @MatthewShribman.
Yeah.
My surname is difficult to spell.
Yeah.
Science in the Bath.
Perfect. So search for Science in the Bath. Shribman is Shribman. Got it right. And we'll speak to you soon. Take it easy.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thanks.